Leon, our main character, has just been reincarnated into another world. While he is excited, he looks at the environment he is in, trying to check out the difference. He sees the quiet ceiling, which is so much different from that of the normal world he knew. The candles that are around him instead of the LED bulbs which he is used to in the advanced world. He looks around and concludes that he is in a fantasy world that is obviously lagging behind in civilization compared to the Earth he had come from. He looks around and sees the maids surrounding him and cuddling him as a newborn baby. It is so obvious that he had reincarnated into a fairly rich household, and that alone is a reason for him to be grateful. For an orphan like him who was without parents and had died from overwork, the lifestyle he has reincarnated to is a very decent one, and he is so excited. He chuckles in joy upon carefully checking his environment. He figures another reason why he had assumed that he was born into a wealthy home. And that reason is his mother. She is too beautiful and elegant to be poor, and she is obviously from a wealthy home. He looks at her as she gracefully smiles at him and calls him her baby. She is obviously excited because of the new addition to her life, and her joy can't be quantified. Seeing all the great things that have happened to him in the first few seconds of being born, he is so optimistic. He concludes that it seems he won't have any problems in this life, and he may not even have any problem in his love life in the future. 3 years later, he is now a growing boy, and that day, he takes a stool and climbs on it so he can check outside his room. For the first time since he was born, he saw the world outside that room. He had always stayed at his cradle since birth, and wasn't taken outside, so peeping out through the window was his first opportunity to see his new world, and he is super excited. He checks outside, and he sees the roofs in the building. The way the city looks concludes his thoughts that his new world is certainly not on the same level as Earth, and it is indeed otherworldly. The world outside his cradle was so huge, and even considering the fact that he was just a child, he could understand how interesting that world would be. As he keeps enjoying the sight of the outside world, one of his maids walks in, and she is afraid that he might fall from the stool. She screams his name and calls him to come down. His adventure and sightseeing ends quickly, but he can't deny that he had enjoyed it. The lady goes to carry him from the stool. She warns him that what he is doing is dangerous. She starts narrating to him what could happen if his father, the Grand Duke, finds out what has happened. That day, he finds out that his father was part of the Grand Duchy, and he was widely known within the kingdom. He apologizes to his nanny for climbing the window. Indeed, he is the son of the Grand Duke Dragonia in the Kingdom of Lionheart, and his father is a duke. He keeps growing as fast as a normal child would, and within a twinkle, the little baby is now 8 years. At 8, he starts learning swordsmanship as the future knight of the kingdom. He would hold the sword happily, and his parents were joyful to see him grow so strong and happy. He recalls that in the fantasy world, he has been reading in his past world. As a knight, he would have access to the sword's kai, and he would even have an aura. All these thoughts make him so excited about his new world. To train better, a master was employed to assist him. His master was a knight dispatched from the palace. He is the holy knight named Sir Gothic. Gothic visits his mansion for the first time and meets him. He is warm towards him, and he accepts the responsibility with great joy. He claims he is sure teaching him is the goddess's will, and he knows he will be rewarded for it. He meets Leon for the first time, and Leon is also excited. Leon bows to him, telling him that he should please take good care of him. He grows older, and when he is 14 years, his countenance towards Gothic changes. He sees Gothic as macho because of the forceful ways he keeps training to train him, and he even says what Gothic is doing to him is nothing but child abuse. He realizes that a holy knight is a monster masked in human skin, and it is extremely hard for a normal person to qualify for the position of a holy knight. Gothic would make him drag mountains and tie it to a roll by his neck. Even when he is tired, Gothic keeps inspiring him to keep up with it till the last lap. He finds out that in that world, to become a holy knight, a person has to complete quests by training and become a knight of the kingdom through his experience and honor. A holy knight is a person chosen by the Holy Grail, and he will also drink the holy water. Furthermore, since he is the son of Dragonia, he needed to learn everything there was to know about becoming a Grand Duke. That lifestyle, which he was excited about at the beginning of his life, becomes terror. He realizes it is more than the grand life and the affluent lifestyle, and it comes with great responsibility. He keeps training with Gothic, who gives him the greatest points about being a knight, like looking at the opponent until the end of the fight. He takes several lessons to become the successor of the Grand Duke and also the training to become a holy knight. He is so tired and frustrated so much that he hopes that there is a god that he can ask to save him from all he is going through. After every fight, he collapses on the floor, looking at the sky. Although he doesn't believe in any religion, he really still hopes he can get help. He keeps growing older, and gradually he is 16 years. Upon clicking the age of majority, he roamed the world in order to be acknowledged by the goddess and become the holy knight after accepting his quests. The major question in his mind was how he was going to get the goddess's acknowledgement. As he roams the forest, he fights several monsters. He is overpowered by a set of orcs, and even after he kills some of them, another set swarms towards him. While standing alone in the forest, he screams for help and hopes that someone saves him. He knows that the only way to get the goddess's acknowledgement is to keep racking up his fame and good deeds and hoping that the goddess will eventually come to him. He, however, feels doing things so unreasonable because you want the goddess's attention is so ridiculous. He keeps fighting the orcs and lamenting that there are too many of the orcs and wondering if that day will be his end as a human. He is surrounded by his team, and he screams for help. He screams that the goddess should have mercy on them and come to their rescue. He screams and begs for help despite knowing there are several opportunities for him to wield his sword and destroy his enemies, which is a concern because that kingdom has a record number of enemies. He eventually decides to fight. He calls the monsters trash, and he hits them, asking them how they dared to invade on his kingdom. Lean keeps growing into a very fine man, and eventually, at the age of 20, he eventually met the goddess after about 2 years of searching for her. She calls him and even his father's name. Upon having a first glance at her, he agrees with the people that call her a goddess. She is really a goddess. She looks so radiant and beautiful. She says that she will provide him with a quest to prove his honor and faith. He bows in front of Goddess Ariana to accept her orders. He is glad that the goddess really existed, and after his efforts to see her, including slaving away for several years, he has eventually met her, and he is now a holy knight. Even after he is bestowed as the title of holy knight, he keeps fighting. He spends every time slaying monsters and enemies. He slew orcs, fought goblins, and even slashed away all the evil cults in the kingdom. After several years of his effort, he succeeded in becoming a war knight of the kingdom, giving him the authority to gather other knights. He has killed over 700,000 orcs, including their children and women. He killed them without mercy, and he felt so refreshed after doing so. When he clocks 35 years, the living saint and demigod, the king of their city, Arjun of Lionheart, passed away. The king had passed away while Leon was battling the archdemon summoned by the Empire. He was tired of fighting. The orcs were enough headaches for him, and even after he had defeated them in large numbers, he was now with the responsibility of battling demons. He sarcastically says that's one of the reasons humans should just believe in gods and live faithfully. Following the death of the king, he was called back into the kingdom to lead the burial. Aside from all the issues that he was going through, they also needed to elect a holy knight to become the successor of the dead king. During the entire election process, Goddess Ariana descends on her people, and she elects Leon as her faithful knight with the symbol of honor and faith. She descends and selects him as her new successor. Upon hearing that, he bows toward her and accepts the responsibility. Indeed, he knows the position isn't one which is so simple and joyful. It is indeed a position of honor and fatigue. But he can't reject such honor because he can't let the citizens of the kingdom and the knights who had followed him all these years down. As part of the ritual for accepting the position, he transplanted the sacred treasure, the lion heart, from the goddess, and that day, he made a vow that he would protect the Holy Grail, and that is how he became the Grand Duke Dragonia and the King of Lionheart Kingdom. Leon becomes 80 years old. Before he clocks this age, many things have happened in his life. He has gone through 3 great wars with orcs. He also fought some weirdo hunchback goblins that evolved into an archdemon. The Empire created more fucked up situations. At one time, he gets a report from one of his knights that the Empire's School of Dark Magicians is enforcing experimentation. He has gone through a lot, and the Empire has done much experiment to make things worse for him because the Empire had accepted the bastardly Northern cult. This foolish divine separatist cult is trying to break away from God. He wonders why they are doing such again, and he asks his knight to gather the other knights. He is angry at this new cult, and he feels bad that he has given human rights to those who don't even deserve to be slaves. He decides the only way to curb their excesses is to conquer them all. After all those fights, Leon grows older, and he is now 96 years old. At this time, the bastards which his empire had adopted had finally done the evil they wanted to do. The emperor of the adopted city has eventually kept their city in trouble. He finds a new god, which he decides to serve, and he offers the god the life of 3 million live citizens just so the stupid god will grant his request. The emperor has eventually crossed the line. He is someone who used to say he doesn't want to die, and now he has committed suicide along with 3 million citizens from the capital. And not only that, he summons the Lord of Chaos into the capital. Eventually, Leon gathers the knights and takes out the holy sword that wasn't yet dry with the grease from the orcs from the year before. He walks away from his palace and orders his people to follow him to the Empire to fight. Leon grows older, and now he is 121 years. His best wasn't enough, and no matter how much he tried, he couldn't stop the world from being destroyed. Despite his best, the world was being destroyed against his wishes. He tries his best to even defeat all the evil with all the holiness that is on the continent. But he couldn't stop the evil ones. In pain, he stays in the middle of all the dead bodies that had died during his regime. As he thinks about all these, one of his knights, Sir Aaron, comes to call him. He tells Aaron to be proud because his father, who had also died with honor, and he had joined the feast of the gods. Aaron also accepts this optimistically. Despite knowing they are on the losing side, Leon commands his knights again. He tells them to look in their front and see their lambs trembling in fear. He asks if they can also hear the sounds of the villain across the land, and if they can hear the women consoling their crying children and swallowing their tears. He asks them if they can also see those who have stolen their brothers. The survivors of the city, the remaining young ones who are also gathered, do not want to give up. They have the dying flames of resistance in their hands, and they are ready to revenge. Leon encourages them and fuels them up. He asks them if they can hear the sound of the villains who have taken away their loved ones. The knights are also trying to plant seeds of hope in the wasteland soaked with blood. Leon asks them if they can hear the sound of the villains who are trying to violate everything they have done. He commands his surviving armies to get enraged and fight. He asks them to be enraged at the fools who are deceived into believing they have won the fight, and they should also remember that as long as they live in honor, they cannot lose. He screams to the goddess for knowledge, but despite his positive mood, he is also scared. He calls for her, calling her the owner of the holy swords, the holy spear, and the holy grail. He tells her that although he is her first knight, but he wouldn't be able to stop the evil that has spread far beyond the horizon. He calls her as he holds his holy spear to fight, asking her what he should do. All the knights carry their swords in solidarity and in all honor to the goddess. Suddenly, the goddess appears to them. She calls Leon her knight and her honored knight. She reassures him that no matter what they go through, she will be with him until the end. He forges ahead to the battleground for his beloved city, and he commands his troop to follow him. That winter, they fought the final battle with billions of devils who filled the earth. The barbarian slaves were used as worthy meat shields as the civilians knights armed with spears and shields died with honor along with the glorious knights, and the chosen agent of all gods and all holy temple, which is him, defeated the demons until the very end. He tore apart countless demon lords and archdemons and showed those bastards the true power of the holy knights. With terror in his eyes and his fighting spirit, he wins the battle. The battle continues for years, and it is until Leon becomes 217 years old that the winter eventually ends. However, the fight hasn't stopped. He keeps fighting and conquering the demons, as well as closing every demon's gate. At 256 years, he destroyed the last remaining demon gate, and there was nowhere left for the demons to escape to. With his eyes raging in anger, he calls the demons poor lowly servants of evil and tells them that they are stuck here with him in the world, and he will kill every one of them, even till the last one of them. He doesn't feel that he was stuck in that world, and that is because the demons are also stuck there with him. He sets out to fight them, calling them bastards. When he was 300 years, he eventually confronted the archdemon, the one who had brought chaos to the world, and with just one slash, he killed the archdemon. Everyone around is shocked. They are all wondering how he could have done that and what has happened. The people are eventually saved, and he asks them to rise. He tells them it is eventually time for them to rise and fight. However, the men in that city do not know him. After several years of fighting heavily, he needs to introduce himself to them. He tells them he is King Lionheart, the Knight of the Glorious Knights, and the agent who carries out the will of the holy temples, Leon Dragonia Lionheart. It took him 300 years. Yes, he is exactly 300 years when he actually came across people from the earth again. He has defeated all the demons on earth, and there is not one demon left, and now the Night King has returned. On that blessed day, a gate opened up in the middle of Seoul. That gate was a very strange one, and the gate's rank was an unidentifiable black one. The gate is weird, and it has appeared in the middle of a civilized city, causing for intervention. The Korean Hunters Association and the World Hunters Association requested that the nation's large guild participated in the raid because they knew it wasn't something they could handle on their own, and it was more than they knew. However, their request for help was declined because no one in the entire city knew the difficulty of that strange gate. In the end, and after a very long search for volunteers to raid this gate, the government ordered the Korean Hunters Association to go inside the gate first. Everyone, including the government and the Korean Hunters Association to which the orders are directed to, knows that the order is an execution order and no one entering into that gate may come back. As they all enter into that gate with positive thoughts, what they see inside the entrance is a naked man. Among the people who have entered the gate on this suicide mission is associate Han Hari, and she is the first person to encounter Leon. While her colleagues call her from behind because they know the risks that may be ahead, she looks at this weird naked figure in front of her, not knowing what she should make of it. She screams, awe, and collapses. After the mission ends, she returns home, and at the office, she meets Kim Jin-soo, the head manager of the Korean headhunter, who brings her coffee because he knows she must be tired. He asks her if she is tried, and although that question is an obvious one even to the blind, she replies to him with a yes. He asks her how everything she has been through is, and she narrates to him that there is no one believing what she or anyone who had witnessed what they saw that day has seen. That's a given because there is no way a normal person will believe that after entering into a weird gate, they have seen a naked person who certainly doesn't look like his age. Kim Jin-soo reminds her that it is expected that no one will believe them. They know that the gate was a black rank demon gate with Even, the great devil, and no one could imagine that she would come back alive from that gate without the help of other guilds, and them coming back alive is already a miracle. However, not only did they come back alive from that gate without help, but they had also succeeded in clearing the gate, and they could only do that because of a man who had single-handed slashed the Demon King to death with an attack. Leon has also come back to the world with them, and after they clean him up and dress him up, Han Hari and Kim Jin-soo meet with him. Han Hari asks him if he is also a survivor from inside the gate, and he replies her that he is a survivor from the other world. He isn't shocked about what he is experiencing. He knows that there are occasional people who manage to survive in the gate realm. The gates that have appeared all around the world over the last 30 years share similarities, and the truth is the theme is of a world on its way to destruction or a world that has already been destroyed. Sometimes, survivors from any of those worlds manage to come back to Earth while keeping the unbelievable strength that they had earned in the demon realm. This is why the government tried their best to cater to the need of the survivors and set plans to scout them and use them for the good of the country instead of allowing them to work against the country. Han Hari and Kim Jin-soo sit down to deliberate on Leon's matter. Han Hari is of the opinion that the government needs to scout Leon no matter what because he is of incredible strength, and Kim Jin-soo also agrees with what she has said. He says that even a rank hunter has to risk their life when fighting a high-ranking demon, but Leon killed the Great Devil just with one attack. The Great Devil is a monster that even the most skilled S-rank hunters are afraid of, and Leon didn't just kill it. He overpowered it and slit his body into two. They recall the courageous way Leon had come out after the attack and the way he was without any injury. Kim Jin-soo doesn't have any issue with the fact that the government has to recruit Leon, but he is worried because of the cultural differences that seem to be between them and Leon. And I guess that is because they do not know Leon was once from the civil world before he reincarnated into the other world. Kim Jin-soo says that the way Leon introduced himself to them the first time they met him, it seems like he is of royalty. However, Han Hari says she thinks they will be fine. When Kim Jin-soo asks her why she is so confident that Leon will blend in well with the modern Korean culture, she tells him it is because she could hear it in Leon's voice. She feels she knows Leon is a good person, but before she completes her statement, she remembers the confronting way that Leon had fought the Demon King and the curse words he has used on that day. As they drive back to the office, they meet their office in chaos. Leon has gotten angry at some of the staff, and even his screams have broken the glass that stops the greatest demon. Leon screams at the attendant asking him how he headed Dirty the Glorious Lionheart name. Kim Jin-soo asks Han Hari if she still thinks he is a good person, and she agrees that he may actually be having issues with the cultural differences. 15 minutes before they had arrived, Leon is sitting in peace with one of the interrogators to narrate what has happened. When he sits on that chair, he feels everything happening to him feels a little foreign, but he isn't bothered because he knows that is the only thing that could happen, and he is really in a foreign land. He recalls when he was still in that world and when he was an orphan who labored in his 20s and then died of exhaustion. It was after his death that he had reincarnated into another world and became the king and knight of the kingdom for more than a century. He remembers his baby self in the new world and even when he was crowned as the king. And after he has conquered the world of demons and has hunted for more than 200 years, which makes him about 300 years old, he is back to where he has started from in the first plate. However, he is relieved that he still has some memories of that place. The investigator starts to speak to him, but before he answers, he decides that it won't be beneficiary for him if he reveals the fact that he used to be an earthling. He thinks about the memories he has in the two worlds. The first, which is the memory of a knight who had lived 300 years in the other world, and the other memory of a worker who had died from overworking himself in his 20s, and concludes that being a night king is better than being a poor man who died from overworking himself. As a result, when the investigator tries to call him Leon, he screams at him and tells him he should be called Your Majesty. He even calls the man a peasant. The investigator looks at him, wondering what is wrong with him, and knowing he has so much power, the investigator agrees to call him Your Majesty and bows to him. Leon also realizes that the investigator is playing along with what he is saying. He wonders if the man is just a nice person or if the government is just being careful about how they approach survivors like him. The man asks him if the black gate that has happened is from his world and how his world got in contact with the Korean hunters. He also asks Leon if it is true that it was Leon who killed all the demons they found dead in the gate. Leon replies affirmatively to all the questions. He asks if the man has forgotten who he is, and the man asks him what he means. He reminds the man that he is the one who has killed all the evil species in the world and also protected the honor of the knights. He keeps trying to maintain a commanding behavior just so he wouldn't be treated like trash. So he tells the investigator that he is ordering him to become his permanent secretary, and he shall bestow him with the privilege of recording the glorious incidents that have happened in the other world. The man agrees to be his permanent secretary, although he actually doesn't have a choice because he is scared of Leon and he is sweating all over his face. He keeps writing all that Leon is telling him, and eventually Leon asks him if they have no etiquette rules for how they treat royalty in that world. Actually, what he wants to say is that he is hungry. He just doesn't want to say it in a requesting manner. The man also figures that he is hungry and tells him that he will have his meal prepared. Before the investigator leaves, Leon asks him to tell him about the human world. The reason he is asking that question is because he feels the need to figure out what has happened to Earth while he is gone. The investigator explains to him that the nightmare on Earth began about 30 years ago. Gates began to open all over the world, and monsters and demons appeared from them. After that encounter, they have been in a constant state of emergency. After they have taken a lot of losses, they realize that each gate has a team and a clear quest, and that when a gate is left unattended to, there will be a dungeon break in which monsters will invade Earth. As he keeps up with his narration, they hear a knock, and he tells Leon that he thinks the food is ready. He goes out to bring the food, and in his absence, Leon thinks of his narration and also the account of what has happened in the other world and says the things that have happened are a bit different. In his world, demons invaded them like mushrooms after a rain, while on Earth, they have gates with themes and quests as if the issues are happening to train the humans through trials. The investigator returns with the meal and serves Leon. When Leon sees the meal, he recognizes it as a bone broth boiled for hours that is topped with salt and pepper and some crunchy kimchi, a meal which is called the xiaoliangtang. When he was a laborer on Earth, xiaoliangtang was like a soul food for him. Although people are bound to enjoy food that they know they like when compared to new food. But that is not the case for Leon, as he forced himself to swallow down the saliva accumulating in his mouth. He refuses the food and screams no. He asks the man what is the trash they have served him, and the man explains to him that the food is called the xiaoliangtang. However, he also knows the food is called the soul food of peasants. He doesn't want to be treated in the same way he had lived when he was on Earth. He screams and scatters everywhere, asking the man why he dared to soul the glorious Lionheart's name. He asks why the man had dared to serve him, a royal food that is meant for peasants, and asks if that is how Earth treats royals from another kingdom. He reminds him again that he is Leon Dragonia Lionheart, a royal from the other world, a proxy for the gods, the guardian of the Holy Grail, and the owner of the Holy Blade and the Holy Spear. He pours the food away, and the man apologizes. He calls the man an inferior peasant and orders him to get out. Seeing all that is wrong with the world, he calls the world a mess and says it is all because there is no true religious faith. He claims to enlighten the foolish peasants is the duty of the royal family. In fact, despite having returned to Earth, Leon still thinks he is a night king. They eventually serve him steak, which he eats happily. Kim Jin-soo cannot but wonder how he was able to recognize their food of chicken and black bean noodles, while Han Hari is just glad that he is eating a T-bone steak and red wine that was made in 1993. Both Kim Jin-soo and Han Hari have discussions that they need to have with Leon, but with the atmosphere they have found when they entered the center, they find it uncomfortable to talk with him at all. They shift the responsibility of who will speak first to each other, and when Kim Jin-soo tells Han Hari to go first, she refuses, saying she can't use historical languages. Kim Jin-soo refuses to talk at first. He tells Han Hari that although she can't use historical language, he still feels Leon is more interested in Han Hari, and he will give her an audience. He reminds her that she got complimented by Leon that she was brave, and he thinks Leon wouldn't kick her out if she enters to speak to him. However, she refuses again. She reminds him that Leon has only said she was brave, and that doesn't mean he is interested in her. She doesn't have any other choice since Kim Jin-soo is her superior at work. She enters the room and speaks to Leon. She calls him His Majesty, and before she enters from the door, she first apologizes for interrupting him while he is eating. Indeed, he recognizes her as the swordsman that he had met when she was fighting the demon, so he invites her in and tells her to sit. Kim Jin-soo and the other officials watch her from the CCTV camera, and she gives them a thumbs up that she has gotten an audience. She sits and asks him if the meal he has been served fits his liking. He admits that the meal wasn't that bad, and he could even feel the sincerity and finesse of the chef. He also says the reason he was giving them a hard time on the other side is not because the meal was humble. It was because of their attitude towards him as the king. He tutors her that when they greet royalty from a foreign nation, they should be treated as such, and that doesn't have to be related to the status of their nation. She immediately apologizes on behalf of herself and her mates. She tells him that due to their lack of knowledge, they have disrespected him, but he says it's fine. He remembers her name is Han, and she tells him her name is Han Hari. He tells her he has heard about their world, the demons, and the wicked things that have appeared in their world. She affirms what he has heard. Han Hari has just one mission why she had come to visit him, and the mission is to convince him to join the Hunters Association. They need to at least get him to join their country's team. She starts telling him of her mission in a very respectful manner. She begs him if he would give them his royal permission so the South Korean government could look after him. The motive of the 21st century intelligence war is to scout survivors, and no matter how much support is promised, they need to stop them from joining another country. He tells her that he knows that as long as he is settled in that world, he has to go to the battlefield because if he is an honorable knight, it is only right for him to fight. That sounds promising, so to get him into their team completely, she asks him if he wants to be affiliated with their association, the Hunters Association. He tells her that although he knows he has the responsibility to fight, a king can't be a soldier for another nation's military. He claims he has to create a new knight order in that world. At that moment, although Hari isn't in support of what he is saying, she could only nod to what he is saying. They go to report to the higher-up, and she returns to get the report of what the higher-ups are saying. Well, considering Leon's power and strength, all the higher-up could say is that they need to give Leon as much support as he needs, and it is great that he hasn't gone to another country or to a larger guild. Han Hari is so disappointed that an association affiliated with the government needs to bow down to Leon. But she also knows it is because of the bastards from the large guild who flaunt their money and power to get survivors. When she talks about the other guilds, Kim Jin-soo tries to tell her something about the Phoenix Guild. But before he completes his statements, he hears beeps around. They get a notification that there is a dungeon break at the Hanam Plains. Kim Jin-soo is worried that if a dungeon break happens at that location, the demonic element will bring the production of food to a halt. Han Hari reminds him that the Phoenix Guild is the guild where the S-rank hunter Lee Youngwon assassins, and they don't have to be bothered because there is no way he won't be able to stop an orange-colored gate. However, Kim Jin-soo is certain that that guild has a different plan, so they need to go and stop it quickly. Angrily, Han Hari screams that the guild only consists of sons of bitch. Her noise calls the attention of Leon, who wonders what is happening. He heard what they were saying, and he got a grasp of everything that was said behind the door. He assumes that the Hunters Association is in trouble, and he also realizes that if a dungeon break happens, the ground becomes infected, and crops won't grow. He tries to use his magic but sees that the earth doesn't have it. He thinks about his kingdom and wonders if it is well. Meanwhile, at the site of the dungeon break, someone asks Lee Youngwon what is happening. Lee Youngwon turns and asks who is the person speaking to him, and when he turns, he sees Kim Jin-soo and Han Hari. They realize that Lee Youngwon has purposely let the dungeon break to happen, just because the Hunters Association didn't accept his guild request. The Phoenix Guild has been continuously requesting a tax exception for the profits of gates. They gained a lot of profits from the byproducts obtained from the gates. Magic crystal gained. and materials from monsters, and they want to be exempt from paying a tax of 1 trillion. The most annoying thing is they have enough benefits as a large guild. But to think they could do something like that just because their request got rejected is so miserable. Hanhari runs to Lee Yongwon, telling him that they have to close the gate immediately because, as of that day, it is 1 week, and if they leave it like that, it will break and destroy the soil. Lee Yongwon tells them that he knows. He claims the authority of the auction gate will be handed over. But what can he do when his guild members are gravely injured? He claims it will be difficult for his guild members to raid at that state, and says they will do it by tomorrow, but they don't know what will happen before the next day. Hanhari is so angry, she accuses him of not having an ounce of patriotism in him. She reminds him that they all know what will happen if the Hanam Plains get infected, but he laughs in a devilish manner, telling her that he doesn't know what she is saying. He asks her why she is being so childish and reminds her that he told her in last year's draft that in their world, justice is money and power. He claims she is quite shallow and old-fashioned. Suddenly, Leon walks in, and Hanhari bows to him, because she calls him his name before calling him his majesty. He warns her not to ever call his name that lightly again. He tells her she is only allowed to call him by his title. Lee Yongwon doesn't know who Leon is, and he says Leon looks like a Westerner. Before he finishes his words, Leon tells him to be quiet. He gets angry and calls Lee Yongwon a lowly person. On the other hand, Lee Yongwon, who feels he is also a boss on his own level, wonders which right Leon has to speak to him in that manner. He is angry that Leon could call him, who is one of the 20s rank hunters of the world and a guild master of the top 10 guilds, lowly. He gets angry at Leon and asks him if he wants to die. He starts controlling his fire to attack Leon, and Hanhari tries to stop him. She tells him that Leon is a survivor, and he immediately calms down. He bows to Leon, saying that he is rude. He introduces himself and his guild and asks if Leon is from the gray-colored guild. Leon doesn't give him a response. Instead, he says a king doesn't repeat himself, and he asks Hanhari for the details of the gate. He asks that they give him a good summary of the gate. They are glad that he wants to help them, so they narrate to him that the gate is a dungeon break. Hanhari tells him that when a dungeon break happens, a large amount of demonic element comes out and infects the land, and crops don't grow on infected lands. She narrates to him that the Hanam Plains are an important granary, which is why they have to curb the dungeon break. They tell him that the demonic energy that is spreading at that moment is infecting the ground, so he asks what the solution is, and Hanhari tells him the solution is to purify the infection and to clear the dungeon as soon as possible. They need to get rid of the dungeon immediately. He gets a grasp of the problem and tells her to call her forces, but they tell him the force won't be available till the following day, so he says he will personally step in. However, he says before he does so, a king from a foreign country can't do any military activities in another man's territory as he pleases, so he first needs to receive permission from the country's king. Hanhari feels that's an overstretched wish. She tells him it's okay for him to intervene, but he insists that there is a legitimate process and rules for everything. He insists that he can't call himself an honorable knight if he doesn't abide by the rule of his nation. He tells her to send words to their king immediately if they want his help. Lee Yongwon sees the way he is commanding everyone and admits that Leon is worse than him. In the end, since they have no other choice, they fly the president to meet him. When the president arrives, Hanhari goes to call Leon and tells him she has made preparation for the attack. He holds an item and tells her that their land is infected and they need to purify the land. She wonders if he wants to purify the land with the straw doll he is holding. She recalls that Leon asks her for 2 things. One of them is a straw doll, and she goes to give him one. He asks her if the women behind her are the wives that made the dolls, and she replies affirmatively. The second thing Leon has asked her for was that the people who made the dolls should be women who had given birth. He asks the women to show the dolls they have made, and that is how the doll-making competition started in the middle of the plains. The first woman shows her doll, and he insults her and says there is no way she can call the metaphysical eccentric body a doll. He tears it and says she has failed. He fails some other women and even insults them that they don't look like women who had given birth. He even fails Hanhari, and after touching so many dolls, the only person who had caught Leon's eyes is an 89-year-old married woman. He takes her doll and calls it incredible. He asks how many children the woman has given birth to, and they tell him she has 12 children. He says that is the origin of the life of a patriot. He claims he normally sends knights with a gift and medal, but due to his situation, he can't do such, so he kisses her hand. He collects the doll and takes it to the plains. He puts it on a plank and lights some candles around it. After he meets the condition, he opens his magic channel and brings out a cup. He makes some chant and offers the doll as a doll of harvest and begs the mother of the harvest to receive it. The cup starts filling with water on its own, and everyone around is shocked. The sun starts rising, and the red light is tinting the clouds. A new day is wanting to start. However, the sun that is rising that day will be a special start to the world. All the water that is dropping from the cup starts going inside the doll, and the doll stands on his own. The doll speaks and calls Lionheart his child. Leon also bows to greet the Mother of Earth, Demira, the god of life and abundance. She tells him it has been a while, and that day, divinity descends on Earth. Everyone around watches him as he bows to greet the great Mother of Earth. He begs her because she is the divine being ruling over life and fertility. She tells him she can see that the new land that he is on is also being invaded by evil. She says the land is contaminated. He agrees with her and tells her that there are also evil species on that land, but there is no divinity there. He claims he is also afraid that the lowly and vulgar wines around him might sully her eyes. However, she doesn't see the people the same way he sees them. She tells him that ignorance and greed cannot always be judged as sins. She claims the characters which he sees as sins are built-in characters of a mortal, so she asks him what he plans on doing for the new city he is in. After several thoughts, he agrees that it is not hard for him to blend in amongst the swordsmen, but he still feels that before he can do anything, the authority of a conqueror is divine. He claims he will make sure that duty and authority can be on the equal ground in his new world. He will ensure he teaches the ignorant and lead them to the right path until a new pantheon arises on Earth. She is glad and happy to hear all he has said, and she asks him if he has any favor to ask her for. She tells him that she is always ready to help him anytime he is in need of help, and he shouldn't hesitate to ask for her help. As a result, he begs her that the free citizens of Earth are suffering because of an evil energy. He is certain that is not something she desires to do, but if she wishes, in her infinite mercy, she should please heal and purify their land, although she also knows that is not what she desires to do. She tells him that he is her temple's head and he is also their champion. She claims that the world's earth is not her body, but because of him, she will spread her divinity there and substitute the thirsty earth with her flesh. She stretches forth her finger, and a drop of water from her finger falls on the floor. That tiny drop of water turns to gold, and it radiates and shines around the entire field. She tells him that after she fills the world with her flesh, everything that walks on that earth will be Leon's ally. The water touches the soil, and all the crops receive life. Everyone around watches the entire scene, and they are shocked. He tells them that they should watch him and learn from him. He calls them people who are ignorant and who can't learn or know. He says their world has been blessed with divinity. All the crops shine and grow, and he commands the crops to give birth and prosper. He claims the righteous duty of a living being is to grow, give birth, and prosper, and that fertile earth is the proof of an eternal promise. Lee Yongwon screams. He sees that with the way Leon has behaved and the fact that he has magically healed the entire city, he will find it difficult to manipulate the government every time to do his wish. He tries to convince the people that what they are seeing isn't real. He tells them that they shouldn't be fooled. He claims the crops that are grown using magic are poisonous and reminds them of what will be the case if they eat such poison. Leon gets angry at him. He calls him an ignorant fool. He says that the crops aren't cultivated with magic. Instead, they are crops blessed with divinity. He asks how he could judge crops that were blessed in those ways and call them poison. Instead of Lee Yongwon to caution himself and stop, he keeps talking about the crops, and he calls the goddess a stupid straw doll. As a result, Leon says he can only forgive ignorance once, and since Lee Yongwon keeps talking, it means he is not ignorant. He warns him not to dirty the goddess with his light tongue. Instead of keeping quiet, Lee Yongwon keeps talking. He can't allow the people to see Leon as their savior because it would destroy the plan he has made for months. He says he can't allow Leon to spoil his plan, and he won't allow that to happen. He still feels Leon is making up lies just as he does, so he threatens that he will expose all of Leon's lies. He goes to meet Kim Jin-soo and Han Hari, telling them that they still need to prove that the crops are edible, and he hopes that they will cooperate so he can prove that the crops are not edible for the sake of the people who will be eating the output of that farm. His plan is that while he is trying to prove the edibility of the crops, he will frame Leon as a fraud. So one of his guild members says that he will provide the appraiser, and they shall begin the experiment. He starts the appraisal, and they see that the crops are more than edible. The first crop is the blessed rice, which is ranked as rare, and it is a rice that is blessed by the divinity of Demira, the goddess of life and fertility. They also found out that when people eat rice, tier 3 diseases will be cured. The man screams. He tells the others that the rank of the rice is rare and all the rice in the field is all of a rare rank. He informs them that the rice can share tier 3 diseases and even cancer. Kim Jin-soo and Han Hari are shocked. Han Hari commands that someone should go and bring a pot from the chief's home. The person returns with the pot, and they cook the rice. When Kim Jin-soo eats it, he screams that there is no way rice can be that great. His appraisal shows him that the rice was made from the blessed rice plant. And when a person eats the rice, the person's stamina recovery rate shall increase by 100 each minute. His mana recovery rate shall increase by 50 each minute, and the rice shall work for 8 hours in total. Kim Jin-soo declares that the rice is basically a reinforcer. He wonders how a mere rice that is cooked from crops gives powers and skills that are equivalent to a reinforcer that is worth 3 million won per bottle. As he eats the rice and thinks of their new reality, Han Hari screams his name. She comes to tell him that there is a big news, but he stops her from talking, asking her to chew the food in her mouth completely before speaking. After she reluctantly finishes the food in her mouth, she announces that she got curious and she ate a bug. She says that after eating the big, she got a buff, and they realize that if that blessing is really all over the land, it means it is a free reinforcer for everyone. Kim Jin-soo feels it is not weird if all living beings are also blessed. He tells Han Hari to get as many bugs as she can get because they want to go inside the gates with full buffs. That day, the Hunter Association's raiding team motivation increases. Demira is still with them, and she has witnessed all that has happened since she blessed the land. She calls out for Leon, and she tells him that it seems she has done all that she needs to do there, and she would like to return to her city. He bows to her and tells her that he has and he never will forget the divine love she has given them. She asks him to give her an opportunity to give him a last lecture. She tells him to make sure he feeds himself, and she leaves the doll. After she leaves, Han Hari goes to ask Leon what the hell has just happened. He tells her what they had just witnessed is divine power. He asks her if there are no gods in their land, and she also tells him she doesn't know because she has never encountered any gods. He explains to her that a proper life and wood is made with divine power, and they should keep it in mind that they can't do anything without divine power. Now that the soldiers have eaten and they are full, they prepare to go into the gate. The members of Lee Yongwon's guild ask him if it is okay if they go into the gate too, because they know that with the rate things are going, there will be problems in their plan. Lee Yongwon is so angry at Leon, he calls Leon a bastard, and he wonders where Leon has come from for him to have that much power. He claims that if it wasn't for Leon, the government would have had no other choice but to listen to his request and grant him tax evasion. He wishes that Leon will just die in the gate so he won't be a further issue to him. As he thinks about that, a new idea pops into his mind. He smiles devilishly, saying that it wouldn't be a bad idea if Leon died in the gate. One of his guild members asks him why he is suddenly happy and what they will do to their plan, but he tells the boy that he doesn't have to worry. As they enter the gate, the team finds out that the gate has been raided in a way. They see that the entrance of the gate would be quite easy, but the middle part of the gate will be a bit difficult. Kim Jin-soo is concerned that there is only one rank hunter among them, which is Han Hari. On the other hand, Lee Yongwon is planning how Leon will fight and die inside the gate. He assumes that Leon is probably a blessing type buffer, and he is sure that Leon is shit when it comes to physical combat. He assumes that the way the gate is and how difficult the middle part of the gate is, there is certainly no way they can survive in that mission. He knows that there is a great monster inside the gate, and the monster can't be defeated by using ordinary means. Suddenly, they get a notification that the dungeon break is beginning, and the system announces that they are dead. The system tells them all the lives of the living being inside the gate are now on the countdown, and when the dungeon breaks, they will die. Leon still doesn't understand how the gate system works when he finds out that if they find it difficult to beat the boss, the gate will erupt, and a dungeon break will happen. He asks them if they also mean that if they clear their quests of fighting inside the gate, and they defeat the boss, most of all the gates will close, while the others are feeling like it is impossible for any of them to defeat the boss, especially because the strongest member of the crew, Han Hari, is just a rank a hunter. Leon is glad that he will have an opportunity to fight the boss. He tells them a duel with the boss is something he thinks he will like. While he is joyed about the situation, he doesn't know that the people are hiding something from him. It's not like they intend to hide it from him. It's just that Han Hari finds it difficult to tell him that a duel with the boss is not something that is as simple as he thinks it is. Instead, the boss will gang up on them, and the probability that they will win is quite low. As they enter the gate and Leon sees the skeleton of the people who had died while trying to clear the quest, he wonders how difficult it could have been for them. He recalls that the people have told them that they have tried to clear the dungeon many times before, but now he is feeling like there are a lot more monsters in the dungeon. He had entered the dungeon with a positive heart, not knowing what to expect, and seeing those dead bodies tell him that the mission is not as simple as he thinks it is. He concludes that it is the characteristics of a dungeon. A dungeon is not meant to be simple, and it is meant to contain several monsters that it will be very difficult to clear. However, he still doesn't understand, so Hanhari notices his lack of knowledge about what is going on, and she explains to him that in a normal dungeon, while the number of monsters usually decreases as they defeat them with most gate, it is very different in the case of skeletons, zombies, or even demons in some special cases. Because in their case, as long as the boss monster is still alive, they will live till infinity, and they will keep multiplying. That seems like an interesting turn of events to Leon, and it also reaffirms his knowledge that the only way the gate can close, or the dungeon can be cleared, is if they kill the boss. He tells Hanhari that he now understands. He starts walking deep into the dungeon until he sees one of the boss. He asks her to confirm if that monster is one of the bosses, and she replies affirmatively. However, she further explains to him that the monster is probably a necromancer that controls skeletons, since that is a skeleton dungeon. They receive another notification on their system that the dungeon break has begun and death has been sentenced. So all living beings within the gate will now have a time limit as the Commander Knight, Dullahan, is advancing with his troops. The mission now remains the defeat of the Commander Knight, Dullahan, and they have 3 hours to get that done. Kim Jinsu and Hanhari did not know that there was a Commander Knight inside the dungeon before they proceeded to enter. They had imagined it was going to be a usual boss, but this one is stronger than they think. Kim Jinsu figures that they are grounded. He screams and calls Lee Yongwon a bastard because he didn't tell them of the risk inside the dungeon before they proceeded to enter into it. The Commander Knight, who is roped in an iron cape and is riding a horse, rides to meet them. He is with his team of skeleton knights, and they are in thousands. Again, the team gets another notification that they should defeat the Commander Knight, and they have less than 3 hours left. The team members are discouraged. The numbers of enemies they are to kill are so many, and it is without a doubt that they will die. Trying to encourage the team, one of the members asks if he should distribute the portions of bugs that they have gotten before entering into the dungeon, and Kim Jinsu asks him to distribute it, but he should focus on giving them to the upper rank because they are the ones who can have the power to fight the enemies better. He asks one of his subordinates, Mashik, how many archers and mages they have in their enemies, and he tells him that he could see 30 archers and 2 mages among their enemies. He commands his team that the ones with sniping skills among them should take care of the long-ranged mobs, and anyone with a shield should stop the mobs from advancing towards them so they can defend themselves. He wishes his team good luck because he knows the probability that they will all reunite alive is quite low. He forges ahead to fight, and as he confronts the first 2 monsters, he admits that the monsters are stronger than he thought. He concludes that orange gates are really different from the other gates they know. However, he is positive that no matter how strong the monsters are, they are not too much for a B-rank tank like him to handle. Unfortunately, his positive mood soon washes off when one of the skeletons attacks him from behind. He turns and sees that they have hit him with a spell, and he wonders why mere skeletons have that much advanced spells. His only means of winning that fight is to grab their attention and distract them. He calls their attention to himself, and they attack him. His colleagues ask him if he is fine, and he tells them he is fine and it is only a little sting. Although he knows he is injured, he encourages them by saying his gear is expensive and he can't get injured easily. The Commander Knight, Dullahan, forges towards him. He screams Dullahan's name to get his attention, and he tries to attack him, but from a long range, Dullahan sends spells at him, and he falls. He starts coughing heavily, his gear breaks completely, and he is vulnerable. Hanhari feels concerned for him and screams his name. Her teammates tell her that they need to save Kim Jinsu and ask if they should have the reserve forces to help them win. She also considers that the only reason they have a reserve force is to help them if they are in trouble like that, and they have to intervene. The reserve forces also join the fight. They try to use all of their spells and their greatest power to no avail. Hanhari feels that there is no way they can win that battle even if they bring their entire squad. She considers that even Leon won't be able to defeat that monster even though he is the king of Lionheart, and the same one that defeated a great demon in front of her. She decides to take the bold step and ask him for help. She calls his name and begs him to help them. However, instead of helping them, Leon, in his high mighty pride, tells Hanhari that a king should never join a small battle like the one they are fighting. Hanhari is angry. She asks him what he means and wonders if he isn't seeing the way their people are dying in the battlefield. She begs him to look for a way to build his honor. but he tells her that he can't believe that she is trying to force him to help them take on Bones. He claims he even feels more ridiculed that he had to invite the goddess just because they have to fight Bones, and says it is also rude to the goddess. He claims he can't watch the ridiculous scene anymore. Hanhari can no longer hide her anger, but she also can't do much because she can't force him into helping them. Her teammate asks her what they are going to do. She feels they no longer have time to waste, and their members are dying. And it is obvious to them that Leon has no intention to help them. He sees that Leon doesn't have any interest in the skeleton knights that are roaming around, and the only one he wants to fight is Dullahan. Indeed, Leon fixes his eyes on Dullahan. He wonders how an undead can move like that, so Hanhari decides that the first way they can stop the fight easily is to stop Dullahan first. She tells her teammates that she will take care of the boss, and she says it so loud that Leon hears her. She commands her other teammates that they should join Kim Jinsu and the other members in fighting the skeleton knights. She equips her skills and forges ahead to fight Dullahan. Although she meticulously plans the attack, it doesn't work out because Dullahan blocks the attack immediately she gets nearer to him. She sees that he is really as strong as she has assumed, and her intention changes from defeating him to finding any means to separate him from the crowd. As she is about to do that, she sees Dullahan's head leave his body and comes towards her way. She wonders what is happening, and when she cheeks meticulously, she sees that Dullahan has intentionally thrown his head towards her to block her view. She wonders what kind of undead fight the way he fights. The attack affects her, and she starts coughing too. However, she avoids the attack, and she stands up to continue her fight. She succeeds in separating Dullahan from the rest of the skeleton knights, and she sets out to fight him alone. The reason she has done that is because the range of her skills is actually too large, and if she fights in the midst of other people, she may injure her teammates. She sets her final attack, a skill which she assumes will be able to finish Dullahan at one hit. She throws it at him, but to her shock, Dullahan manages to block her attack with the blunt of his blade. While she wonders what is happening, she sees a sword attack Dullahan. She sees the way the sword has come through and slashes his body, and she feels the stance is familiar. Well, she is right, as it looks like the same attack Leon showed the day they met him. Leon walks towards her. He claps and encourages her, telling her that he is impressed with her skills. He says Dullahan has displayed an exquisite sword despite that he is using just one hand. He says he is sure he was a noble knight at one point. He walks to Dullahan and asks to apologize, saying that he has mistaken a great knight like him for a mere undead. He walks closer and introduces himself to Dullahan as the King of Lionheart, and says he is giving Dullahan the right to challenge him. Hanhari looks at him and wonders what kind of person he is. Leon says there is no need to have more troops injured, and says he will like to end the fight with a noble duel between himself and Dullahan. At least, Hanhari is relieved that he has challenged the boss to a duel by himself. However, she is shocked because she feels there is no way that a boss will accept such a duel. But to her shock, Dullahan accepts the duel. Dullahan accepts Leon's proposition, and he asks all his skeleton knights to step back. Seeing what he has done, Leon calls him a knight of honor. He tells Dullahan that he can let down his neck, because he is sure that Dullahan uses a double-wielded swordsmanship skill, and he is sure they can't have a proper battle with a one-handed weapon alone. Leon also brings out his swords and prepares to fight. As he makes his preparation, Hanhari goes to meet him. She calls him, and he asks her to say what she wishes to say. She decides to give him the means to end the fight easily because they are on a countdown. And when the countdown ends, they will all die. They are not in a position where Leon can flex his fighting skills, so she advises him that Dullahan won't die unless he beheads it. Instead of accepting her advice, he looks at her ridiculously, asking her if what she has just told him is so important that she has to stop him from fighting. She whispers to herself that what she has said is important, but she doesn't have the audacity to tell him that. She wonders how he intends to fight and win against Dullahan without beheading it. But he tells her that the way he fights the battle doesn't really matter, and all that determines the winners of a duel between knights is the knight's honor. He further explains to her that he is the first knight of Goddess of Light and Justice, and Dragonia's Archduke and Lionheart's Lion-Hearted King. He walks and says he is sanctioning Dullahan as an honorable knight for a challenge. Dullahan also bows to accept the challenge, and the fight starts. As Dullahan forges towards him, he holds his iron and dodges the first attack. After Dullahan sends his first attack and Leon dodges, Dullahan goes for the second attack. This time, Hanhari, who is looking at them from afar off, says that if Leon blocks something like that, then he should win. The attack is coming so fast that she screams his name to caution him and asks him to dodge it. Leon doesn't even consider what she is saying. He concentrates on his fight and keeps trying to figure out how Dullahan is moving and fighting. He comments that Dullahan's steps are too light. He raises his sword and attacks. That attack is so great that everyone watching the fight is amazed. Kim Jin-soo asks his colleagues what has just happened and asks if they also saw what happened. They wonder how Leon was able to dodge that hit without leaving the spot where he is standing. Han Hari also comments that Leon is amazing. Kim Jin-soo asks her if she also saw what had happened. However, while every other person on that battlefield can't understand what is happening, Han Hari is the only one who really understood what happened in the battle. She explains that Leon had changed the weight balance by tying in a sword guard the moment the attack touched the blade, and on top of that, he also managed to have a cross-cut, which is how he was able to counter-attack and also defend himself. She says that no one on Earth dared try something like that. Leon raises his sword at Dullahan again, and he tells Dullahan that this is the second time. Even Dullahan can't understand what is happening. He commands Dullahan to get back to his position, and says what is happening is only possible because Dullahan is overpowered. It has been a while since Dullahan came across a knight who treated him like a knight and properly requested a duel. When he heard Leon challenge him to a fight, he felt it was likely a trick to avoid the difficult situation his team was in. Well, anyone would have thought the same way when they heard the suggestion to get off the horse. However, he realizes that his thoughts are wrong. He looks at Leon better, and he says that Leon's straight posture and the look of the veteran that he had shows that he has experienced countless battles. Leon also has starry eyes that chase honor and eminence, so he decides to take Leon's sword attack. After Leon attacks him, Leon tells him that this is the third time he is taking his attack. As Dullahan takes that attack, he admits that Leon is the pinnacle of an honorable knight. Leon asks Dullahan if he wishes to continue the duel, and as he talks, Dullahan realizes that Leon is indeed the king of knights and he is someone to be revered and challenged. He feels he doesn't want to use his power of necromancy because he wants to go on hand-to-hand fight with Leon for as many times as possible as a knight. He has never gotten an opportunity to fight in such an honorable way before, and he really wishes to keep up the fight in a knightly way without using any spells or magic, and by using his blades against Leon's blades. He recalls how he used to duel against famed knights when he used to wander around the world with honor. He has forgotten those ways because they are long gone behind him now, but that opportunity he has gotten revives all those memories again. They keep going and going, and on every account, Leon keeps his countdown even until he reaches number 10. After they reach the 10th round, he commends Dullahan that his swordsmanship is getting more precise, and asks him if he has recalled the memories of his past life. His statement makes Dullahan recalls more of his memories, and he screams. He says that Leon is an honorable knight, and indeed, Leon has returned him to the glorious days of his past. Leon asks him if he still wants to continue with the duel, and he replies affirmatively again. He recalls that he wasn't a monster initially, and he was an honorable knight too. He wonders how long he has been causing massacres, and he wonders how long he has been fighting repeatedly without any honor. He feels if he can end his cursed journey that day, it will be an honorable way, and there can be nothing greater than that. He eventually kneels in front of Leon, and his skeleton knights also know it is time for their death. Seeing that the monster has accepted to die, Leon commends him and says he is glad that Dullahan has regained his honor. He says he will pray for him. He touches his head and says that if he has a god, he believes him. Then he is praying that the god he believes in accepts him back and gives his soul rest. But if he doesn't have any god he believes in, then he prays that the goddess will guide him to the end of the garden. Before ending his prayers, he says he someday wishes to meet him again as a great knight at the banquet hall of the gods. After the prayer, he declares that there should be light, and he cuts off Dullahan's head chanting that the glory should lie with him. After the death of Dullahan, the dungeon gets cleared, and all the troop returns outside the dungeon. They bring a truck to get the proceeds of the dungeon, and Han Hari comments that Leon kept his promise. Kim Jin-soo is also shocked that Leon could end that fierce fight with a duel. However, he wonders what was the light that shined around them and recalls that Leon has said, "Let there be light." They wonder if that is the divine power he is always talking about, and if that is the reason Dullahan disappeared immediately after the light shined upon them. However, Han Hari wonders why he didn't use that skill earlier on instead of making them fight a futile fight. He walks to them and tells them that if he had done that, then the knight would have met his end as a necromancer. However, he doesn't want that because he knows that a knight lives for honor, and from honor comes action, and from action will come will. He concludes that Dullahan received what he deserved as a noble knight. He leaves the gossiping hunters and goes to fetch his loot from the dungeon. They wonder what he wants, and he says that there is a saying that where there is a battle, there is a loot, and the rule of finders keepers work in that situation. He goes to take the crystal to the dungeon. He shows them, and Kim Jinsu sees that the crystal has tremendous mana. They also get Dullahan's great sword and also his cape. While Kim Jinsu and Han Hari are excited as to how much the crystal will sell for, Leon destroys the crystal and calls it garbage. He says items like that only cause chaos. So, in the long run, they are able to get Dullahan's cape, Dullahan's great sword, mana stones, and some other magical items from the dungeon, and the necromancer pearl, which they had found was destroyed by Leon. The Hanam Gate was cleared successfully, and Leon does his first mission as a hunter on Earth. Some days later, Han Hari takes a plate of food to serve Leon. On her way, it is obvious from her look that she is tired and frustrated. It has been 4 days since Leon arrived on Earth, and within the last 4 days, a lot of things have happened, some of which they could have never predicted to happen. She has sores on her eyes, she looks sleep-starved, and she also admits that she is really tired. First, after their last dungeon raid, there was a small problem because of taxes. After they took out the proceeds from the dungeon, Leon has assumed that the position of finder's keeper works, and he wouldn't have to drop any of the items he had found to anyone. However, the team asks him to pay taxes, and he gets angry. He screams at them, asking them how they dare ask a king from another nation to pay taxes to their nation. They tell him that he could pay wing mana stones instead, but he insists that a king does not count his coins and says such matters should be undertaken by the people beneath him, and there was no reason they had to bring such matters to him. He shuns Han Hari, telling her that he is done with the coins talk and it is not his job to talk about petty things like that. However, on the other side of the coin, their Hunters Association gain new followers because they have introduced divine powers into their land. These followers come to meet them, asking how they should pay their tithe, which is the proceeds of all the works they have done. They come to meet Leon, who commands them that they should pay 19 trillion as tithe. He tells them they will bring 90% of their yield as tithe. He asks them if they think the offer he is giving them is generous, despite the fact that the offer is ridiculous to the ears. The people complain that both taxes and the cost of living in the city are already too much, and 90% of their yield will be outrageous. Instead of understanding their plights, he asks them why they are so worried about going hungry if they are really followers of the goddess. He says that their welfare, their costs of living, food, and everything they need will be taken care of by his guild. Han Hari tells the people that the blessed rice that the goddess has given them has an insanely high appraisal value. She shows them the rice, and they are shocked. She announces to them that every 80 kilograms of rice will be 150 million won. The people scream because they feel that the price is too much for a bag of rice, and they wonder how much they would have if they are to give 90% of their income for tithe. When they look at Leon and see his expression, they show a sign of faith in his god. That is obviously not the end of all the issues Han Hari and the other members of the association had with Leon. The biggest problem they faced was the issue of Leon's residence. Han Hari takes him to the first apartment they have for him, but he screams at her, telling her that when they aren't in the midst of a battlefield, why is she giving him a place that doesn't have a single piece of artwork in it? With his anger, he demanded for a luxurious bed, servants who would always be on standby, and an artwork that he could admire at any time. She immediately picks up her phone despite that it's at midnight. She calls and tries to find 5-star hotels where he can at least lodge to sleep that night. She keeps making calls until it is 2 a.m. so she can rent a suite room. Unfortunately, she can't find any alternative, so she kneels and starts begging him. She begs him to sleep while groveling for forgiveness. After all her efforts, they compromise to have just a painting or a ceramic price on the room's display. And that brings her to the present moment, where she is trying to get him food. She gets to the front of his door and she announces her entry. He asks her to come in, and when she enters, she asks him if he is feeling okay. She tells him it is time for breakfast, but he asks her if she has also eaten. When she says no, he orders her to eat, saying she can't go about skipping meals. She opens his food and puts it on the table, telling him she will have some sandwiches later. However, he asks her to have her seat beside him. She doesn't know why he wants her to sit, but she does that regardless. She wonders if he wants to share his meal with her, and when she sits in front of the food happily, he gives her a weird look and asks what she is doing, so she apologizes. He asks her again what she is doing and tells her the reason he has asked her to sit down is so she can ensure the ribs are easy for him to eat. She tells him she thought he wanted to share his food with her, but he asks her if she has ever heard of a country where kings and peasants eat together. The head of the Hunters Association meets with Leon again. They tell him that they have decided to provide him with support funding and resettlement aid, but it won't be as good as a palace, but they will make sure they are comfortable. He tells them that he is more considerate of them. He says that he can't ask for too much as a guest, and he will leave them to take care of things like that. Hanhari says they want to talk about the distribution of the loot, but he tells her that he has told her to take care of all those things herself. However, he says he likes the night cape, so they should leave that with him. She tells him that she has heard. They drive towards their location, and when they get there, he comes down from the car. They tell him the place that they have rented for him is close to the Hunter Association, and it has a helicopter pad on the top floor, so it will be convenient. Hanhari asks him if he thinks that place is okay for him. When he gets nearer, he sees a set of stones, and he asks them what the hell it is. They enter the place, and a person calls Hanhari, although she answers, but she doesn't know who the person is. The idea of renting that place is a top-end secret of the association, so she wonders how the person had known that they are going to be there, and she asks him who he is. Although the man claims it is a coincidence, he introduces himself as the director of Dujung's Food of the Future from the Dujung Group, and he claims his name is Park Jongchun. When Hanhari hears the name, her countenance changes. Dujung Group is one of the top 3 keyball groups within the nation. She wonders why the director of such a group is waiting for them. Park Jongchun looks at Leon and says he must be the famous survivor that everyone is talking about. That seals Hanhari's suspicion that Park Dujung isn't there coincidentally, and he is actually waiting for them there. He walks to meet Leon, and he calls him by his name, which angers Leon. He tries to shake Leon's hand, but he refuses. Leon calls him a mere merchant, and says why will a mere merchant want a handshake with him? They enter the building, and they tell Leon that the association will be providing him with that place for a year, and they will also take care of his utility and rent, so he doesn't have to worry about any of those things. He enters the room, and Hanhari tells him that there is also room service and cleaning maids, so he can utilize those services too. He actually feels relieved too. However, Hanhari is concerned about something. Information regarding survivors is top secret, and in a situation like theirs where Park Jongchun's intentions are unknown, it is a relief that Leon had ignored Park Jongchun and, in fact, humiliated him. She asks Leon if he knows the reason Park Jongchun could have asked you to see him. However, Leon tells her that there is only one thing a merchant would want, and the only thing is that he is pursuing for profit. Hanhari wonders how Park Jongchun could get excess profit from Leon. She remembers the blessed rice that Leon has made through the blessing of the goddess. She figures the reason Park Jongchun has come to visit them is because of the blessed rice from the Hanam Plains. Due to the urgency of the situation, the management of the situation did not go so well, and a streamer recorded the situation. The association requested for him to delete the video, and although he deleted the video in their presence, he still uploaded a backed up version of the video. She checks YouTube, and she finds the video under a channel named Farmer Mr. Park. She wonders if he is the one, and she is so angry. On the other hand, Park Jongchun Ha also angry about the way Leon has treated him. He calls Leon an arrogant little savage. He asks his researcher if he is sure that the effect of the rice is real, and his researcher says yes, but he asks that they haven't tested the rice on humans. He wonders if there is a guarantee that the rice will work on humans just because the rice has worked on rats. They tell him that in order for them to obtain more information about the rice, they went to meet the owner of the rice field, and apparently, a dying dog suddenly recovered, and people with chronic inflammation and sinus infection immediately felt better after eating the rice. She tells him that all kinds of minor and major diseases throughout the village were cured after people ate the rice, although they haven't gotten any data regarding human testing. But the effects of the rice are basically proven. Park Jongchun concludes that the rice works. However, he keeps remembering the way Leon had addressed him when he went to meet him, and he calls Leon a psycho bastard. He is angry that Leon dared call him the director of the Dujung Group, a mere merchant. His scientist tells him that they must get their hands on the rice because the power of that rice is limitless. He admits that they are right and says he has to find a way to meet Leon again. He angrily slams his hand on the table, remembering the humiliation he had gone through earlier. He says Leon thinks he is so important because of mere rice and says he will ensure he shows Leon that he has messed with the wrong enemy. He assumes that Leon is just like the other survivors. He views survivors as bastards who think the world they are living in is the best one. So he decides that he will overpower Leon with culture shock. Will Park Jongchun succeed in making Leon regret his actions towards him? What do you think will be the next move of the great King Leon Dragonia of Lionheart Kingdom? And that's how the first part of this manhwa ends. Well guys, if you like this video and you want a second part, comment below with the word part 2. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell and like the video. But most important, leave a comment. Until the next video.